advising clients across the country. Here he is, your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
All right, welcome. This is Something More with Chris Boyd. Thanks for being with us. I'm Chris Boyd, certified financial planner practitioner, and my office is Asset Management Resources. We're a registered investment advisor firm, and our show, Something More with Chris Boyd, is a financial show. We like to talk about not only those important dollar and cents issues, but also those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. So thanks for being with us. I'm joined by Jeff Perry throughout the show today. Jeff and I both are advisors with Asset Management Resources. And Jeff, thanks for coming in and doing this with me.
Always a pleasure. I always enjoy it.
Well, it is Mother's Day this weekend.
It is.
Got any exciting plans for, actually your mom passed recently, didn't she?
She did. It will be, so it's been 3 years since my mother passed, but we have a little tradition that we do with Mother's Day, and certainly will be with my wife, Lisa, and her mom.
Her mom's still with us. Is she going to be with you?
She will be. And we have it with a couple of friends as well, whose mothers have passed and their children are spread across the country. So it's a tradition that we've had for several years, and we'll be continuing that.
Oh, that's terrific. That's a nice way to do it. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Mother's Day later in the show. In fact, my mom's coming in.
Excellent. I was hoping that would happen.
Yeah. So we're going to, and some of our team members have shared some nice messages about some of the lessons they've learned from moms. So we'll share those as well. And hopefully we'll enjoy a little bit of getting into the spirit of Mother's Day for our listeners as well.
They deserve at least that one day.
And if you haven't done anything, it's time to go get something for mom.
Yeah, you have fair warning. It's not today, it's tomorrow. So Let's go.
Yeah. So in any case, very good. So that'll be part of it. And then in line with that thinking, we invited a very special guest that will join with us in just a moment. Jean Chatzky, if you recall, she's been on the Today Show for a long time. She's really a great wealth of resource for women's financial issues. And so I thought that would be a good fit for this show.
It would be a good fit any week, but especially this weekend.
Yeah. So we're going to have her on in just a moment. Before we jump to that, let me remind everybody about our upcoming seminar that we have scheduled for June 6th. And this is open to anyone. So if you're listening and you are of an age where you're coming up on the possibilities of either Social Security, which could be as soon as 62, generally somewhere around 66 to 67 for full retirement age, or potentially 70 if you wanted to wait, or 65 is eligibility for Medicare. We have some speakers planned for this seminar. It is happening in Hyannis at the Courtyard Marriott in Hyannis from 9 to 11. It is fully educational. We've got, Jeff, you were on with me. We had Marcia Mantell a few weeks back doing a live show with us on Social Security. She's a real authority on that, and it's just makes it kind of accessible and easy to follow and relate to.
Absolutely. What that show clearly demonstrated is it is not as simple as people may think.
No, there's always things to be like, how does this work? How does that work? And if you're a public employee, if you have been divorced, if you're widowed, there's all these different considerations. Just if you're just dealing with, should we take both of ours at this age? We want to start early. Should we start late? When do you turn on the benefits? These are all variable, and it can be different for everybody. So anyway, Social Security, but also one of the challenges, healthcare is such a huge cost that in retirement, you have the opportunity to turn on Medicare at 65, and there's some nuances around it, and there's different plans, different parts of Medicare. We're going to explain how it all works. And so Susan Flanagan from Blue Cross Blue Shield will be our guest speaker, entirely educational, nothing product related. but to be a real helpful. If you want to register for that, you can reach out to us through our website, amrfinancial.com, or you can give us a call, 508-771-8900. Just indicate you want to register for the seminar. And if it's easier for you, so these days, I don't know about you, Jeff, if I can text something instead of calling.
I'm guilty of this. Yes.
Yeah. So you can text us if that's easier. 508-915-3700, 508-915-3700. Just indicate you want to register for the seminar, and we'll follow up with you to let you know if there's availability. Where it's as space is available. There's plenty of space right now, so it shouldn't be a problem. In any case, that's coming up fast, June 6th, though. So in any case, hope
definitely be worth your time. You will leave there knowing more about your Social Security and Medicare questions, and it could be if you're divorced, if you're a widow, a widower, and if you have a health plan from your employer, do you still need to sign up for Medicare? There are so many unique things.
What if I'm still working,
right?
That kind of thing, past 65?
On the radio show, there was a gentleman that called in, I think from West Barnstable.
Oh, yeah.
And he was days away from making a mistake of not signing up for Medicare that could have left him with a hole in his health care, but also could have cost him quite a bit of money for not signing up as required. So it's really worth your time. Even if you think you have a handle on your Social Security and Medicare decisions, I guarantee you're going to come out learning more, and maybe you'll reconsider what you think you're going to do.
All right. Stay tuned for that. Join us for that. Let's get to our next guest. Well, next up, Jeff, I have to say, I'm really excited about our next guest.
I am too.
We have Jean Chatzky, the her as the financial editor for the NBC Today Show for, hard to believe this, 25 years. How's it been that long? And also the financial ambassador for AARP. She's a frequent guest on CNN and MSNBC, and was a recurring guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show. How fun would that be? That must have been awesome. And then, as you probably know, she's a best-selling author on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, best-selling author, 11 books published. Her latest book is Women with Money, The Judgment-Free Guide to Creating a Joyful, Less Stressful, Purposeful, and yes, rich life you deserve. Well, that's a title, Jean. That's terrific. And then we'll talk about that for sure. It's a mouthful. And then, of course, as you know, Jean has a new venture, HerMoney.com. And if you're not following her podcast, Her Money, with Jean Chatzky, it's a must for great personal finance information, but particularly tailored to the issues women face. So in any case, Jean, it is a real thrill to have you with us on the show. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Pleasure to be with you and with you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I remember I've seen you also. I know you're a public speaker. I saw you at a TD Ameritrade conference. I think it was, might have been FPA. I've lost track now, but a conference a few years back. And so you're a public speaker as well. And our listeners, if they're not following you on social media, they can find you on Twitter and Instagram at Jean Chatzky. So, Jean, lots to dig into. We definitely want to spend some time on the issues women face uniquely in their financial journey. But let's just start for a little bit. How did you end up on the Today Show? What an awesome gig that you got. And that's been a while. So do you still do that, or is that run its course?
I don't do that anymore. I'm spending my time these days focusing on HerMoney.com and our podcasts and our newsletters. And I hope that your listeners will check us out. We publish 2 newsletters every week. They're free. So just go to HerMoney.com and you can get on our list and start receiving those. But I got on the Today Show because I was working at Smart Money Magazine. I'm a financial journalist for 35 years. And we were a new magazine at that point. there was a big PR effort to spread the word that we existed, and they got a gig on the early morning version of the Today Show for our editor-in-chief, and you had to show up at 5 a.m. and there was no coffee. And he did it once and basically
like,
said,
do that after this.
He was like, yeah, that's it. I'm not going back. So they, the deal was that whoever had a story to talk about that week would go and do the segment. And I went one week to do this segment, and the producer chased me down at the elevator and said, we like you, can you just come back every week? So I did the early version of the Today Show for a few years, and then I got picked up on Today and did that for 25 years. And a lot of the other things that you mentioned, the books and the speeches and Oprah, really came along as a result of
that exposure,
being on NBC.
Huh? Yeah, that's terrific. Now, when it came to being a journalist in personal finance, did you have training of any kind, or were you someone who was into personal finance who came into journalism, or was it that you were a journalist who became knowledgeable about personal finance? You know what I mean? How did that evolve?
It was more the latter. My first job out of school was at a magazine called Working Woman, where the job I got was as the assistant to the business editor, which was a good fit for me. I was very interested in the subject matter. I liked writing stories about companies and some personal finance. And so when I was ready to leave that job, I was looking for a job at a big business magazine, at a Forbes or a Fortune, and nobody would even look at me because they thought Working Woman was kind of a joke. And so I floundered, quite frankly, for a little while, but eventually decided that I was going to get a job on Wall Street because I realized that what I was hearing in interviews was this need to understand finance. And I wasn't at the point in my life where I was ready to go back to school and get an MBA, but I got a job in an equity research department and learned finance, which enabled me to come back and get a job at Forbes and from Forbes to Smart Money. So I learned some on the job in that way. And then I learned personal finance by reporting about it. I was able to, when you're a reporter, you can call up anybody you want. And often if they think they're going to get quoted, they will talk to you. So I had access to really the most amazing sources on dealing with your real money in real life that a person could want and learn that way.
That's fabulous. Well, and of course, a big part of our jobs in personal finance is communicating concepts and application of, these things. And so it dovetails so, perfectly in that, it's both understanding the concepts, but also how do you apply them and how do you communicate that in a way that people relate to and say, oh, that's me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where I was particularly good at this. I am good at taking complicated information and breaking it down and synthesizing it and spitting it back out in a way that people can understand it and follow it and actually act on it.
Yeah, clearly that's been a success for you. Well, tell us, well, first off, before we move on, what's it like hanging around with Oprah Winfrey?
I haven't seen Oprah in quite some time, but it was pretty great. I did a 6-episode arc on her show called The Debt Diet, where we helped 1 million people plus pay down their credit card debt.
Wow.
And then she hired me to do a radio show for her for 3 years on the Oprah channel. So I did that as well.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Well, tell us about HerMoney. How'd you decide to start this venture and develop this podcast, this website? You said there's newsletters and
It's a great website, by the way. I was looking
Oh,
at it
thank you.
in advance. There's a lot of resources on it and a lot of opportunities to learn more. So,
Well, that was our hope, to really build a place for women to feel comfortable learning about money, to come and engage and talk about it and read about it in a variety of ways. Her Money started as a podcast. I launched a podcast 7 years ago. And what became very apparent to me and my colleagues pretty quickly was that we were growing a community around this podcast. And so we decided that we would launch as a company. And we've been really fortunate that we've been able to grow over the past couple of years through the pandemic, in readership, in listenership. We've launched a coaching program too, actually. So we run a program for anybody who is interested in getting a better handle on their cash flows and their budget. If you're looking to save more, spend a little less, work towards your goals, maybe pay down some debt, we've got a program called Finance Fix. That's an 8-week coaching program that mixes one-on-one coaching with some small group work, with some e-learning. And then my friend Karen Feinerman and she is a CNBC panelist on Fast Money and a professional investor. We recently launched a program called Investing Fix. It's an investing club for women. And every other Monday night, Karen and I are teaching fundamental investing to hundreds of women, investing club style. And if any of the women in your audience are interested, I hope they'll check it out. You can get a free month, see if you like it, and give it a shot. But our portfolio is doing well, beating the market, and we're having fun learning together.
is this the traditional type of investing club where the members, if you will, the subscribers, maybe in your case, are actually making collective decisions, or is it?
Yes. So the subscribers are making collective decisions. We're not pooling assets. So there's a monthly subscription fee, and we are teeing up 4 different investments every month. We dig into them on the basis of fundamental analysis. How do they make their money? What we like about them, what we don't like about them, and whether we'd buy them at the current price. The members vote on what gets added to the group portfolio. We buy it in real time. And we know that a lot of our members are buying these same investments for their own accounts. Sure. So the interface that we've developed allows you to track your portfolio alongside the group portfolio, which has been a lot of fun.
Essentially a model, and then but not that everyone's participating in a collective way. They can go replicate it on their own should they want to. Is that the idea? Exactly.
And what's been really great is that our members are teeing up ideas that they want to look at, and so we're working with them to help them analyze those investments. And we've had, not just stocks, but we took a look at treasuries and I-bonds. We've taken a look at ETFs in a number of different industries, and they've come along and presented as well, and some of those suggestions have gotten added to the portfolio along the way. So we're learning together. We're answering a lot of questions. Karen and I are having a really good time, but the members are as well.
Just out of curiosity, is anything ever sold?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The way we set up the portfolio was with a finite amount of money. And so in order to force the discipline of selling, because as you know so well, sometimes deciding to sell something that you feel like you've got a vested interest in is really, really hard. But we look at selling for different reasons as well. We've got Alphabet in our portfolio, and some of the things that the company has been saying on their recent calls, but also that we've been reading and paying attention to, have made us think maybe it's time to trim that position. So that's one that's been in the mix this month. And it's not up to me. It's up to our members whether we hold on to our full position or decide to unload some of it.
Investing fixed, very reasonable price for just under $400 for an 8-week intensive. How many hours of involvement? Is that correct?
So that's Finance Fix.
Finance
Fix is our budgeting course
Yeah,
and cash management course. And yeah, it is actually an incredibly reasonable price because you get 2 one-on-ones with your trained certified coach. There's 8 weeks of group classes once a week, and then all of the online learning that goes along with that. So it's probably an hour or 2 of work each week of homework, just to sort of put it in perspective for people. But our members who've gone through the program have found that they save $1,000, $2,000 because we ask them to take a really hard look at where their money is going. We ask them to guess where they're spending. Everybody guesses wrong. And then using technology, we show them where they're actually spending.
Everyone guesses too low, I would suspect.
Everyone guesses too low, but everyone guesses too low on different categories, right? Because spending is so personal. So some people guess too low on pets. Some people guess too low on transportation. Most people guess too low on food. And we show them where their money's really going, and then they can make changes, because once you have the information, you can start to really exert some more control over where you want your money to go.
Is this exclusively focused for women, or if a couple is a married couple?
We have separate sessions for couples. Okay. We've put some couples into the programs that women are going through, and it's always just fine. So couples actually do well going through it together, and sometimes we've found that they surprise each other with where they'd prefer to cut back and not cut back. But having the coach in the mix is helpful there as well. Investing fixes, because you asked about the price.
Yeah, sorry, I did the wrong one.
No, it's okay. I think it's a deal as well. It's $39 a month, but if you want to try it out, we offer a free month just to get yourself going.
Yeah, fun stuff.
And by the way, we spell it with 2 X's just to make things complicated. So if you want to find it, you can go to HerMoney.com, but you can also go to Finance Fix with 2 X's or Investing Fix with 2 X's.com. And you can see some more info on both of the programs.
Let's talk a little bit about the unique issues women face in being financially secure.
Sure. So women are, I think, at a really interesting place right now. We've heard plenty about the gender wage gap and how stubborn it has shown to be. And it is stubborn. Women are making, depending on whose numbers you look at, somewhere between 82, 83 cents on every dollar a man earns. Women of color are making even less. At the same time, we're still the ones, and the pandemic really brought this to light. We are still the ones who take breaks from work to care for kids and to care for older parents. You put that together, and what you get is the fact that when we get to retirement, we've got a smaller balance in our accounts. Yeah. And then we go on to outlive men by about 5 years. So we've got to take that smaller amount of money and we have to make it last a longer number of years. And that is a challenge. And that's why it's so important for women to be investing. We're actually very good at it. But a lot of women, and I'm one of these women, so I completely get it. We like to have all of the information so that we can make a correct decision about any problem. And the problem with investing is that there is no 100% correct decision. So you got to have a little faith.
And you often don't have all the information that you'd like
right.
to.
Yeah, exactly. So that is that we got to get ourselves over this starting line. And the sooner we start, the better, because you want your money working for you over time. At the same time, right now, there are a lot of forces that are helping women. We are, when you look at educational trends, more women are graduating from college than men. Those additional degrees will over time drive increased earnings for women. When you look at the intergenerational wealth transfer that is expected over the next 3-4 decades, women are expected to inherit most of that money, because we'll inherit both from our parents and from our husbands that we'll outlive. So a lot of money is flowing into the hands of women, and we need to make sure that we're absolutely ready to handle it.
So the way to do that, you think, is I imagine, is education, understanding these issues and starting early, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, I think education is a big part of it. I don't think education alone solves the problem. There's a lot in human nature that fights our better angels when it comes to money management, and this is true of men and women. And so I think it's important to let technology help us get out of our own way to, once we have decided that we want to be investing on a regular basis, whether it's in our 401ks or in discretionary accounts, we want to automate those contributions so that we don't have to make a good decision every single month over and over again to put the money to work. Like just set it and forget it and monitor it. Right? Don't take your eyes off, but don't force yourself to mull it over every single time you get paid.
Jean, have you, in your experience, both interviewing other people and learning and your process, and now your experience with helping women, have you seen a difference? I hate stereotypes, but generally in risk tolerance that's for women versus men?
Again, I think it's a difference in getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So when we ask women, I did this for my book, Women with Money. I asked women, what do you want from your money? I just asked them that question over and over again, hundreds of women. And I heard the words safety and security and stability and savings, right? Cash in the bank. And when you look at the data on the percentage of money that women keep in cash versus the percentage that men keep in cash, it's higher. We keep about 71% of our assets in cash versus 60% for men. That's a problem, because when that money's sitting in cash, it's not working for you. And if we drag our heels getting started, which is a form of risk aversity, we really slow ourselves down on this wealth building trajectory. And so getting yourself to the point where you trust and verify, I think is the key. And education 100% helps with this, but you also just sometimes need to fake it till you make it, fake it till you believe it, right? And I think men sometimes feel this way as well, but they don't talk about it as much.
I think there was some money philosophy rules we probably won't get to today, but maybe we'll get to talk about it when you're not with us. But there was some great lessons in there. Any as we wind down, any sort of like last minute, like what should we really try to impart with people as they listen?
I think if you could get yourself to those 5 rules that you're talking about, these are principles that I put together over the course of my career. And they're not rocket science, right? You got to earn a decent living. That's number one. You have to spend less than you make. That's number two. And you have to do it on an ongoing basis. If you're having trouble with that, that's where our Finance Fix program can help. You got to take the money that you're not spending and put it to work for you, meaning investing. That's number three. You have to protect the world that you're building, this whole financial life, with a combo platter of insurance and an estate plan. And, most people need help getting that right. And then I really believe you got to find some way to give back that is meaningful to you, because although there is a litany of research on the fact that more money doesn't really buy more happiness once you get to the point of living comfortably, we know that giving back does. And so if you can do all of those things kind of on the regular, then I think you've got it licked.
Yeah, excellent. Outstanding advice. And let's remind everyone again, listen to the podcast, Her Money, as well as, and we heard before you came on, we were talking to your assistant, said you got more podcasts coming out.
We do. We're launching a podcast, How She Does It. Karen Feinerman from CNBC is hosting. And we'll also be launching one called How She Makes Her Money with a wonderful host named Tanya Rapley, who is the co-host of a program called Going From Broke on Crackle.
Awesome. Well, we'll be on the lookout for these. And go check out HerMoney.com. All kinds of resources, maybe some of these helpful ways you can get resources and get some help on your budget or whatever it might be. So, and you said newsletters and all the like. So anyway, Jean, such a pleasure having you with us. I hope we can have you back someday in the future. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Welcome back to Something More with Chris Boyd, and I'm here with Jeff Perry. Jeff, Jean Chatzky was a great guest. She's really got a great story.
She's so, she's humble, obviously, but being on the Today Show for 25 years, having a show on Oprah and all those other things that she quietly outlined, she has quite a pedigree.
Yeah, absolutely. A great resource. And I mean, I imagine just having that kind of daily exposure and assessment of what are the issues people face, you really get a unique perspective to try to identify and help people get through some of those. She kind of didn't call it behavioral finance, but she did imply an element that it's not purely education that makes a difference in this. There's elements of the way we internalize money decisions as well that I thought is very true, but very challenging to get a handle on and change. I mean, how we view scarcity and abundance. I think we were talking about this not too long ago.
Yeah. If personal finance was only about math, it would be easy, right?
Yeah. And in my experience, I've been through periods of scarcity and, starting a business, young children.
Sure.
At a point where we had 2 kids and didn't make sense to be paying for childcare. So, that stays with you when you have gone through that kind of struggle, even when things are going fine. I to this day, we're in a very different situation than we were when we started out as a business, as a, just as things have evolved and developed. But I find I'm always looking over my shoulder, what's going to disrupt it? What's going to be a problem, right? That's internalized, it becomes part of who you are. And it's not necessarily that it's a reality-based, concern. Do you know what I mean? I think that's true for lots of people, different drivers, but you get that kind of, in my example I'm sharing, but you know what I mean?
But you're talking about when you were a young adult. I mean, it goes back further than that. I think our
people as children,
fears or our perceptions or whatever adjective we want to use about money is in part
maybe even more internal
when we're growing up, right? How is it talked about in the household? Is it argued about in the household? Is it a cause of stress? Is it a cause of joy? How do people look at giving? How do people look at work? We're formed long before our adulthood, I think. And so
good point. It does plant seeds that stay with you for a long time, and can be challenging to think differently and move beyond that kind of internal self-talk that stays with you, from
absolutely.
Whether it's, to your point, it can be, very early on that it can be affected. In any case, it takes effort to move beyond that. Jean talked about Finance Fix as a resource. We also have been offering something more mentoring as a resource. We just recorded our most recent one.
Yeah, I think our program's probably a little bit more one-on-one than hers. She talked about.
Did sound like it. It sounded a little more maybe in depth, if I will, in terms of the length and duration of content.
Yep. So if people are listening and they're wondering what something more mentoring is, they can go to our website, amrfinancial.com, slide over to the services tab on the top, and you'll see something more mentoring come up. It tells you all about the program. And if you want a little taste of it, you can go to the bottom of the something more mentoring page, and there's 9 videos up there currently, more to come, and each one is intended to be viewed in sequence, meaning you start with number 1. You don't have to, but it's recommended. And for those individuals who want that one-on-one mentoring, meaning an accountability partner, someone to help them develop a comprehensive financial plan, engage with them monthly, we have a program there as well that people can subscribe to.
One of the things I thought was very interesting that she mentioned as it related to that program was the idea of a embracing of some technology that can help you get a handle on your budget considerations. That's, I mean, we know some of these programs, and it's a great idea to help to make it just a little easier, a little faster, perhaps, in trying to get a handle on that.
You really do need to know, we focus kind of on the top line, our income, how much do you make, but you really do need to know where your money is going. You need to actually make a plan for where your dollars go. And if you don't make a plan for them, they're going to go somewhere. So you get to decide where they go. And there's a lot of great budgeting apps out there. And as I think she said in the interview, most people, and we find this with our clients and prospects, most people, when you ask them to outline their expenses, they do it, but they usually underestimate. They usually, unless they really are doing a math exercise, from their bank account. But if they're just jotting down how much do you spend on this and that.
Absolutely. Most people will say, well, I spend about this much on that much on that, so they have maybe some things that they recall about, my utility bill, my mortgage, my car, whatever. These are certain absolute stable numbers. What you spend on groceries fluctuates, from period to period. What you spend on, there's a lot of things that people don't account for. The cash that they carry, if they carry cash nowadays, people don't do as much of that, but maybe those ATM or debit card type transactions, if you use Venmo or one of those kind of that kind of activity that's a little more fast, quick transaction here and there. It's not really a part of your disciplined, planned expenses. It's some of that stuff that's, more flexible, I guess, if you will.
Those small debit card transactions or cash transactions add up quick, right?
Yeah, how much you're spending at Dunkin' Donuts or fill in the blank, wherever you go, that kind of thing, or maybe it's lunches or whatever. That stuff isn't accounted for as readily, as effectively, as accurately. How much you spend on gifts, how much you spend on entertainment, dining out. And
That's mine. I've said it before.
There's lots of different ones for everybody, right?
Everybody has their thing. Yeah.
So I think it's easy to have sort of a false sense of, we spend about, and feel like you're fine. But unless you actually take the time to do an exercise, and, when we talk to people, we often encourage them not to categorize it. Just to start with, just to say, what am I spending? What's that number? And then
people are embarrassed to tell us how much they spend on some
well,
things, but we don't want to.
It may be the case.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want to tell you how much I spend at the liquor store or, whatever, right? Whatever it is, right? So, or golf or, fill in the blank, right?
Shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever that might be. So,
sorry, honey.
So it's at this point, we're like, well, let's just start with what do you spend in aggregate? I don't care how it breaks down. It almost doesn't matter. If you have a year's worth of numbers, it's probably going to be a rough accurately for what you do from one year to the next.
But when you do, not to share, but when you do the line by line analysis, you realize how much you're spending. A number of years ago when we had
there can be an opportunity to evaluate, is that really where I want my money to go? But so there's two different objectives. One is just to get a handle on how much.
Right.
Other is this really the best way for me to use my resources? Is this what I want? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I use Quicken and I download all of our transactions. It's just who I am. Most people aren't this precise, and maybe you don't need to be, but when we had a boat, I, of course, kept track of all my expenses, and, you realize that you're spending a lot of money on your boat for the number of times you use it. And
how many times, how much per use does that translate to?
It was about $750 per use in the years that I analyzed it. And it does make you think, like, do I want to have this boat?
Is it really worth it? Yeah.
So it informs decisions if you're willing to look at it line by line. And it's also, if you have a budget, I always have to say this because I don't want people to look at this solely in a negative way, but if you have a budget and you allocate money for things, it gives you permission to spend. If you're saving $5,000, $10,000 a year for vacations, you have permission to spend because it's in your budget and you can do it.
We have both. You mentioned not everyone pays that close attention. We have some people come in meticulously track everything. And then other times people, they're not really quite paying attention to, how's it go, right? So you're absolutely right. It can, on the one hand, be a resource to say, to be intentional. Is this really a good use of my resources? Do I want to do this? It can also be an opportunity to say, clearly, you have the resources. Go ahead. Enjoy.
Right. Go ahead.
That kind of thing. What'd you think of Jean's money philosophy, 5 bullets? She rattled through them pretty quickly, but those are great.
We should just share them. She did go through them quickly, and I think they're worth repeating. Number 1, earn a decent living, right?
Yeah.
That
have good money in to make
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Number 2 is right up my alley. Things I like to talk about. Spend less than you make, right?
Yeah. Bottom line, you gotta have less going out than is coming in. Otherwise, clearly it's a recipe for failure.
Right. And, I'll just add a little bit to that off our previous comments is people don't tend to look hard at their expenses when they're cash flow positive.
Right.
If you have extra money every month, I'd still encourage you to look at where your money's going because it's probably not going exactly where you'd like it.
Stuff creeps in that you kind of forget about or take for granted. And again, sometimes you might say, is that really what I want to spend my money on?
That's right.
And it may be that it had a reason and a purpose in the past. And then you say, oh, I forgot I was doing that. Like it's just an automated kind of thing. Or
do I need 17 streaming services? Probably not. Right.
Yep.
Her number 3 was put your money to work. And that can mean different things for different people. But I think in short, to me, it means have a financial plan, work with a financial advisor. And
I took it to mean that you want to have some savings, but you also need to put that money to investment over time. You don't want to, I think there's a danger sometimes for people to have too much, air quotes, too much savings, which is to say, there's an opportunity cost. They're not putting money to invest in a way that can grow. And I think that's where she was going with that.
Yep.
In particular, didn't you take that?
I do. And if you have a little money you can squeeze out of things that you don't want to prioritize, maybe you can increase your retirement contribution or your 529 savings, or, to be more intentional, right?
Right. Right.
Number 4 was protect yourself. And by that, she referenced having the proper insurances and having an estate plan.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that comment, because I think sometimes when we get into talking about personal finance, we get excited about talking about investment strategies, specific investment selection, design, right?
Yep.
We get focused on the investment side of it, and it's the part that's kind of the most fun, I think, in reality. There's excitement. Oh, I can make a rate of return. I can can really do well. That's understandable. There is appeal to that. There's a reality, though, that we have to have a good foundation of our financial house in order, so to speak, right? And one of those things is to make sure that for example, if you don't have health insurance,
right,
and you have a health ailment, it can wipe out any great savings and investment.
Yeah, you could have $100,000 in the bank and think you're doing well, but
you get a cancer diagnosis, you're going in debt. You're going to go bankrupt.
Absolutely, that's gone. Right.
As an example, right?
Right.
If it's property and casualty insurance, you drive a car, you don't have properly insured, liability could be enormous.
Don't think
property costs. You might have enough to replace the car itself. But what was that?
I was going to say, don't think the minimums in your state are going to protect you. They're just
may not be sufficient, right?
Probably not.
Same for homeowners insurance, et cetera.
Right.
Then it comes to life and disability. These are other kinds of coverages. If we're not here, if we're alive and well, and we've got a game plan, we've got our financial plan, we will create the wealth, and time will pass, and all goes according to plan, let's say. Great. Right?
That happens sometimes.
Of course, the reality sets in, right? Things deviate and change. But the unknown is, how long will we live? What if we don't make it? If you've got kids, you got a mortgage, you've got, someone else that depends on you financially, it's not terribly expensive to have some manner of protection to mitigate that risk, to say, in case I don't get to do it all myself, let's make sure there's a safety valve.
Yeah. And this is true for almost all ages, but specifically when you're in the wealth accumulating stage, you're in your working years and you have a young family and you don't have the robust savings, you're working towards it. But, I am surprised, I must admit, how many people that I talk to who are younger than I am. I'm in my late 50s, and they have some savings, but certainly not enough if they passed away that their family would be all right. And the number of people who don't have any or adequate life insurance. And then, as you said, the cost of acquiring some term life insurance at a young age, unless you have a serious health issue. But even then, you might be able to obtain some life insurance, but it's just something that you need to have at certain stages of your life to protect those people that you care about the most. And then there's the estate plan. As you get, arguably anyone who's married should have an estate plan, or has a significant other, or has assets, should have some type of basic estate plan. But it's something that
anyone who's dependent upon
that's
you,
right,
want to be planning. And of course, as you acquire wealth over time, it's like, so different maybe priorities in that, but these various stages of life, it doesn't even have to be that. It can be anyone who wants to make sure that if anything happens to them, they have someone to handle their financial life or their healthcare decisions,
or raise their children.
I mean,
there's a lot of big things here.
Got to have the right structures in place to make sure that, and it doesn't have to be necessarily, when we talk about estate plan, makes it sound very elaborate and complex. It doesn't always have to be a complex set of documents, for if you're starting out. It's just, you have to have some documents, some structure that you've said, this is what I want to see happen under these different circumstances. And I think sometimes people don't want to deal with those circumstances.
Well, sure. It's a lot of people don't want to deal with death and disability. Absolutely. They're just, they're younger. When we're younger, we feel invincible. We feel these things are not going to happen for a very, very long time.
Right.
You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd, Financial Talk Show.
Asset Management Resources, LLC, and J. Christopher Boyd, CFP, provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is in the nature of general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. AMR, LLC cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.